fast-paced world, many of us struggle with overthinking and worry that leaves us feeling overwhelmed or stuck. In this podcast, we will hear stories of successful individuals and have conversations and ways to reach our true potential by embracing every micro detail of our identity, especially the flaws that make us unique. This is your host, Maria Grace Wolk. I'm a Filipino-American entrepreneur, psychotherapist, and mom of 2 boys. And my mission is to amplify diverse perspectives and experiences and inspire your journey to wellness and fulfillment. Hi everyone! Today I want to take the time to talk about mom guilt/parent guilt. As you know, I am a mom of 2 young boys, and I completely and wholeheartedly agree that motherhood is a privilege we hold so close to our heart. The most fulfilling job, and also it's so hard. So hard. And I'm so guilty of all the mom guilt that I experienced since my kids were born. I think I even feel guilty for having mom guilt. From the moms in my private practice, as well as my mom friends and colleagues, when I ask them about mom guilt, it's all the same. We all experience it once, twice, or even several times a week, or even several times a day. Times when we lose our temper and we raise our voice, we feel guilty after that, right? Times when we can't make their games or practices because we have to work, we feel as if we're letting them down. And when we're feeding them fast food or when we're not cooking the healthiest meals, there's that internal guilt of bad mom alert. When we often feel like we are making decisions that may mess up our kids in the long run. And for those who has multiple kids too, how to spend time with them equally, and when we don't, we feel bad for the other. For example, like tomorrow's the first day of school for both my kids, and they are now going to 2 different schools, one in middle school and the other is still in elementary. It sucks that I can't be in 2 places at once. And I'm already feeling guilty over the thought of that. Then there's the guilt you feel when you take some time for yourself, when you go out with friends or just to sit and rest or watch TV. Somehow we can't even relax because we feel that we should be doing something. And there's that word should, right? I want you to pay attention to how often that comes up for you. How often do you should yourself? So whether you stay at home, work part-time, or have a full-time career, you're not immune to that feeling of, I should be doing better for my kids. It's so universal that sometimes we just don't question it. Mom guilt is the feeling of failing as a parent. It often shows up as feeling like we're not good enough and we're messing everything up. Feeling so overwhelmed with the pressure and expectations that we may have internalized from our own childhood growing up and from society alone. I want to make it clear, though, that guilt isn't something we need to get rid of. Guilt is actually a natural response that makes us human. It's an emotion that encourages us to work on valuable relationships, discourage acts that could damage them, and repair them with an apology as needed. Research shows that guilt proneness may be related to empathy as well as trustworthiness. As a matter of fact, lacking guilt and remorse is a trait used to diagnose a sociopath. So there you have it. If you have guilt, you can be sure you're not a sociopath. There's also a very close link of shame and guilt that you want to be aware of. Brené Brown explains it in a way that makes it so easy to understand the difference. In her words, shame is I am bad, while guilt is I did something bad. Shame is more focused on self when we question our own self-worth. Guilt is focused on the behavior. And guilt happens when we feel bad about behavior, not who I am. Guilt is more adaptive and helpful. But of course, when it is an excessive feeling of guilt, it can become really burdensome, harmful, and it can really negatively impact parenting. So, what are some factors of parenting guilt? of mom guilt. And as I mentioned earlier, expectations. There is this expectation bar of motherhood we set out for ourselves that is ridiculously unreachable, limitless, a bar only being a perfect parent can achieve. And we all know that perfect parents don't exist. Some examples for these expectations can look like I should be home with them instead of putting them in daycare. I should be present with my kids full time and also have a full time career. These are the shoulds again that I mentioned. I should never lose my temper or do anything that may disappoint my child. Impossible, right? I should be cooking all organic and healthy meals and have a spotless home. I should be more organized with my home. I should have more energy, even if you know you're not getting enough sleep or remembering to eat because you're too busy with that everyday task that never ends. As moms, we can hold ourselves to an impossible expectation of doing it all. That's being a super mom, a superhuman that we somehow think we should be or are expected to be. That's just impossible. The mom who can do it all. You tell me you know one, and I can assure you, you don't know her well. We all know that there's no perfect human being, and we all make mistakes, and we all feel guilty for it. And this brings me to society and gender roles. These are messages that we have internalized growing up from our own parents, from friends, from school, from TV, movies, books, social media. They all play a huge factor in having mom guilt. We grew up with society showing us, teaching us, telling us that women will be caretakers of children, of family, of a community, and men will be the breadwinners. That there are certain behaviors, attitudes, and personalities that are acceptable for women and different for men. This is called gender role stereotyping. It's when a person is expected to enact a series of norms or behaviors based upon his or her sex. And when these norms aren't followed, there are negative consequences. Sometimes the feeling of not belonging that can lead to guilt and shame, anxiety, and depression. Yes, we may have had some, improvements over the years where, men and women are doing equal parts of parenting roles, but there are some internal beliefs that are still somehow ingrained in us or in parents, in women, in moms, that we must unlearn. Another factor to note is perfectionism. Perfectionism is often defined as the need to be or appear to be perfect, or even to believe that it's possible to achieve perfection. But I want you to please note that I will have a whole separate episode on perfectionism. So be sure to look out for that, as perfectionism has so many different, angles or source that we can discuss. But when we constantly hold ourselves to a standard of perfection on being a parent, and we don't reach that standard of perfection in our head, the guilt sets in. And it can lead to self-defeating thoughts and behaviors that can affect your relationships and, of course, your mental health. And then we compare. And of course, you all know, comparison, it's the thief of joy. So true, right? A quick stroll through Instagram and you're seeing hundreds of posts of what other moms seem to be doing so well, from creating healthy meals, educational activities, and also them not looking like they need sleep at all, right? So when we see this, we think, what is wrong with me that I can't have my family look perfect like this? We can fall into that comparison trap, right? Because once our basic needs are met, the way us humans determine what is enough is relative to the people around us. And before, we used to just be able to compare ourselves to those physically around us, like our neighbors or friends. But now with social media, now we are comparing ourselves to a crazy number of moms in the entire world. It brings forth more self-limiting beliefs based on what we're exposed to as we compare our lives with others. It's just, yeah, it's definitely, it's a trap. It's a trap for guilt. So what can we do about mom guilt? We need to start within ourselves. We can start with challenging them. The practice of mindfulness is a helpful tool to be aware of what comes up for you. And I know that I talk about it a lot, but honestly, mindfulness is key. It's a way for you to dig deep, right? Identify the sensation in your body and really explore what's the message that your body is telling you. What's the automatic self-talk or the belief that you have about yourself that's fueling your guilt? And then challenge it and focus on how you're doing your best, and your best is good enough. The next thing that is helpful for us to remember is that our kids are so observant. They're like sponges, and they will absorb and learn from what they see their parents are doing. So what we need to do is teach our kids that it's okay to not be perfect. Let's model how to resolve conflicts within relationships, right? When we teach our kids to say sorry, we're teaching them empathy, and it's okay to make mistakes. We can model what to do when there's hurt feelings, right? How to manage their emotions when they make mistakes instead of, beating ourselves up. Practicing self-compassion and emotion regulations, teaching them that all emotions are normal so they never feel alone. We are teaching them the value of being imperfect and that they are enough. That's being human. Teaching them how to repair after rupture is a golden skill for growth. And then what else can we do? We can talk about it. Brené Brown says that the antidote to shame is vulnerability and connection. When we share our fears and shame with trusted friends and loved ones, those feelings of shame start to dissipate. Connection helps us deal with our own shame and guilt, and it also helps us challenge society, the system. Continue the conversation with those you trust, and you may be helping others as well as yourself. Yes, as parents, we are responsible to nurture our children, feed them, teach them, protect them, and discipline them. And how we do this can be different and unique for parents, right? We are all different, unique. We have our own parenting styles, and that's okay. But when we package this all up into one, our ultimate goal is to love our kids unconditionally so they can develop the wisdom and courage to live a life of their own. That is our ultimate goal. So drop the expectations and the high bar of perfectionism. Remember to do the best that you can, and do not neglect yourselves. Don't be so hard on yourself if you fail to live up to the unrealistic expectations. Ask for help when needed. This is so important. Asking for help does not mean you are failing. We're all in this together. And if you have guilt, it only means you care. That is all I have for you today. Feel free to reach out to me on my website at mariagracewolf.com if you have any questions at all. I would love to hear from you. Until next time, take care, stay brave, and own your journey. Thank you all for your time today. To sign up for my free 7-part email course, please visit mariagracewolf.com. This course is for people who struggle with day-to-day stress and worries. By the end of the course, you will have some tools and techniques to manage your anxiety. Furthermore, if you enjoy this podcast, please be sure to hit subscribe, rate, and review. I would so appreciate it. The high rate and reviews will help others find the podcast so we can amplify, normalize, and break the mental health stigma. This podcast is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information in regards to the subject matter covered. This is given with the understanding that neither the host nor the guest are providing legal, mental health, or other professional information. If you need a professional, you should find one. This podcast does not substitute for personal professional services.